Right, after introducing some of the organizational structure has been utilized by professional sports league. So we're going to talk about some of the policy that has been introduced in the professional sports leagues in the US. So we're going to introduce some of the policy that professional sports league in the US to utilize in order to enhance the competitive balance. So we did introduce the concept of the competitive balance when we were talking about college sport. Do you still remember what the competitive balance is about? Right, it's the professional sports leader try to introduce some of the policies, try to enhance the competitive balance, making sure a team's not taking too much advantage over the other teams, and also try to promote a very fair competitions within a professional sports leagues. So what policy has been introduced by those four majors, including MLS, in order to enhance the competitive balance among all the different teams? So we think about like 5 or 6 policies. The first policy is about player draft policies. We're using reverse draft systems, right? So player draft policies is an equitable system for distributing the new talents among all the members. So the team, basically the policies indicated the team with the poor records will have the advantage in buying the new talent players over the teams with the best records. So basically, is when you're watching the MFL games for the team who has not been qualified for the MFL playoff will have the advantage to pick some of the best talents among the young talent pools um, in order to make their team become stronger, more competitive next seasons, right? So all the professionally are using different types of the player draft policies. Using MFL as example, they have 7 rounds of draft, which means each team can recruit 7 new players from the draft. So for the MLB, they have 40 rounds of draft. So the MLB's draft takes a very long period of time. And the reason MLB can draft so many players because a lot of MLB teams also have connections, also have the relationship with the minor league baseball team. So when they draft these players, they don't normally keep all their players in the first team. Majority of the players will be played at the minor league baseball games. So for the NBA, they have 2 rounds of the draft. So both rounds have a 30 picks, so each team can get 1 pick per rounds. So that is a brief player draft policies. If you look at more particular, the NBA, so player need to be 19 years old in order to participate in the draft. Right, player from the United States need to be at least 1 year after the graduation of the high school. Um, and also the team did not qualify for the playoff will be able to pick the young talent first to avoid those teams purposely losing the games. So they will enter the draft lottery system to see who get the first picks. It's not like you got the worst result this season that you're gonna pick first next year. It's like the team did not qualify for the playoff this year, and you have to go through a lottery draft lottery systems and to see who's lucky to pick the best young talents among all these young players. So this is about player draft policies. What the problem associated with this player draft policy from your perspective? So actually there are 2 problems. The first one is some team they're tanking at the end of the season when they realize they have no chance to qualify for the playoff. So they purposely lose some games to make sure they have more advantage in the player draft. So that's one of the problem. And another problem is these ideas actually go against the free markets, right? So for some of the young talent players, so they have to a lot of time, a lot of young talent player may have to play for the team that they don't really want to play for. So one of the example is Zion Williamson. He's the number 1 draft at the NBA in the 2019 seasons, right? So initially, he was really want to play for Lakers or New York Knicks. So when he noticed he got drafted by the New Orleans Pelicans, so he was not happy at all. So after draft, he was even thinking about whether he need to go back to colleges to continue with his education and come back to participate in the NBA draft again next year. So a lot of time. So the players might not be able to play for the team they really want to work with. So that is one of the problem for the player draft policies. So that's the first policy that how the professional sports leagues to use in order to enhance the competitive balance. The second policy is called salary caps or luxury tax. That's same, right? Salary cap. A lot of students have heard about salary cap or maybe have learned it from other classes. So salary cap is basically a ceiling on players' payroll to protect the owners from overbiddings for the talents. Right? To understand about salary cap, you also have to understand the salary floor. Anyone know what salary floor? Salary floor is basically a minimum money the team will have to pay for player salaries. The salary floor normally is 89% of the caps, right? So in terms of salary cap, we have hard caps and soft caps, right? So hard cap used by the MFL and NHL basically is talking about no team can spend more than the amount of the money against the caps. So MFL salary cap in 2020 is $188 million. So the player salaries you cannot spend more than that, right? In addition to have a salary hard cap, we also have a soft cap. The NBA is actually using a soft cap. So soft cap is talking about the cap is actually allow the team to sign players and make trades that exceed the cap under certain conditions. However, if you spend too much on player salaries and the trades, the existing caps will trigger some of the penalty, which is known in advance. Right? Those penalty may including fines or may including luxury tax. Right? So NBA first introduced the salary cap is in 1946 to 1947 in their first season. So the cap at that time was $55,000, right? So with the most player earnings between $4,000 and $5,000. But in the 2019 and 20 seasons, NBA salary cap is $109 million. So with LeBron James, his salary is $35 million, which is the highest pay among all the NBA players. Right. So for having the salary cap, or the biggest benefit we say is they can keep the league very balanced. Right. They can enhance the league's competitive balance, make sure no teams can dominate the league. They can really help control the cost of the teams and also prevent a situation where a team they will sign a high cost contract for star players only to later find out themselves in the financial difficulties because of those costs, right? So this is about salary cap. And also we have a luxury tax. So luxury tax was introduced by the MLBs in 1997. So basically to talking about the team you can pay above the threshold that's set by the MLB, but the money you pay above the threshold that you have to pay a tax. So the goal of this is actually to encourage big spendings, but also still try to maintain a pretty good balance in the competitions. Interesting thing is about the luxury tax has been considered become a more effective strategies than the salary tax. One of example is in the last 30 years, about 18 different teams who won the World Series in the same time frame, right? Super Bowl was won by 14 teams, and 13 teams won the Stanley Cup, and only 10 different teams won the NBA title. So a lot of people think the luxury tax is actually a better strategy compared to salary cap, can really enhance the competitive balances, right? So this is about the salary cap and luxury tax, which has been utilized by professional sports league in order to enhance the competitive balance, right? So in addition to player draft policies and also salary cap, other competitive balance strategy, revenue sharing. All the professional sports league, they have to require the team to share the revenues, right? Gate revenue, sponsorship revenue, and broadcasting revenue have been shared among the teams. Using MFL's example, so 60% of the gate revenues can be kept by the team. So 40% of the ticket revenues will be shared among the leagues, right? And the broadcasting revenue are shared completely equally among the teams. So each team will got $170 million a year. For the MLB, they require team to share 34% of the gate revenues with the leagues. And also, they also have a local broadcasting revenue, right? They also have shared some of them as well. For the NBA, the team can keep 94% of their ticket sales revenue, but 6% of them will be sharing among the league. So those are the different league. We're using very different strategies. Because really, if we talk about ticket sales, some markets so big, like Los Angeles, like New York City. So this market is so big, although their team might not have a very strong performance, but the market is so big. Their ticket price is also very high. The revenue they generate from selling the tickets is also very high. So although that, so they're having a lot of like advantages since they have such a great market powers. So revenue sharing is actually a pretty good strategy that the professional sports teams will have to share their ticket revenues with other teams. Then they won't have too much advantage in these competitions. Right, other rules including blackout rules. Blackout rules basically talking about the games are not viewable in the media markets, right? So if you're located in Cincinnati, for instance, a lot of time you cannot really watch your local team to play on the local TV channel. So you have to go and watch cables if you want to watch on TV, or you may go in to buy the lead package. The most important thing, the blackout rule, is they hope that you can actually go and buy a ticket and watch the games at home instead of like watching just TVs. Right. So another policy is a territory rights. So the teams are granted exclusive territory right to promote themselves. Right. We talk about some teams actually located bigger markets have a greater market powers. So to restrict those market power, territory rights actually pretty good strategies. You can look at New York City, Yankees and Mets. They're sharing the very big markets, right? So they have very clear boundaries between these two different markets. So Yankees, you can only promote yourself here, but Mets, you can only promote yourself here. You cannot promote your games in the Yankees territories, right? So those are territory rights. So those are competitive balance strategy has been utilized by a professional sports team. So the textbook, they actually talk about a lot of different issues that exist in professional sports league. We're going to go over one by one. I think you can just read by yourself, but we're going to only talk about one pretty important topic and issues, which is the social media. So social media has become a trend. So when Facebook was introduced to the market in 2000, possibly 2005, social media has become a thing. Right, I created my social media account, Facebook accounts in 2006 when I was doing my master degree, and then later on you have a good idea about Twitter, and then Instagram, and then Snapchat, and now TikTok. So many different types of social media existing in the market right now. So social media has really changed the way how we think about sport and how we promote sports. Right, so think about every individual's. I always ask my students a question. So do you have a strategy when you're using your social media platforms? A lot of students say, no, we don't have a strategy when using social media. We're just using social media randomly, right? But no, actually everyone have that strategy when we're using our own social media. I'll give you an example. So a lot of people using Instagram right now, right? Because Instagram, you can share pictures, share videos, and also you can share the moment, and the moment will only be existing there for 24 hours, right? So it's kind of fascinating. So when you share your pictures or videos on Instagrams, are you select those pictures when you share them, or you would like to share all the info, all the pictures from your cell phones on the Instagrams? Of course, you would like to select these pictures, right? Because a lot of time when we're using social media, we want ourselves to look good. You don't want to share a picture that when you got very drunk or share a video that embarrass you in front of everyone on a social media platform, right? So we do actually have the strategy when we're using social media, because we try to look great on a social media platform, right? That's why social media platform, they introduce a lot of things like likes and comments. So when you share things on Instagrams, on Snapchats, on Facebook, people always want to go and look at, hey, how many likes do I have? Right? How many people comment on these pictures? How many people say nice things about these pictures? Right? Sometimes you might receive 100 positive messages, but only one negative message might rule your entire days, right? Because that really hurt your confidence. So when we're using social media, we try to develop a positive image on our social media platform, right? That's how individual using social media. We don't want to share all the embarrassing moment of ourselves on the social media platforms, right? That's the same to the professional sports organization or colleges, athletics departments, our sports organization as a whole. When we're using social media, we're trying to select the most relevant information on that, and then we can share on that platform. And this relevant information need to be positive, right? So a lot of professional sports organizations are using social media right now. So when I was doing my dissertation with our Lakers in 2016, so I get to know a little bit about how Lakers has been using social media. So Lakers created digital departments in 2009. So initially they only hire one people. Now they have like 5 or 6 people work at the digital department. So they're mainly responsible for sharing all the information across all the different social media platforms. Right. So obviously that's a great opportunity for some of you if you think you're pretty knowledgeable about social media and want to find a job somewhere like in the social media or digital um, departments in the professional sports organizations. So if you want to find a jobs in the social media or digital departments in professional sports organization, you have to understand how we're able to use social media effectively. Right. So there are some of the issues associated with the social media usage. Like the first things, it's very difficult for you to measure return on investment. Right, we spend a lot of money, or we hire a lot of people to help us with social media operations. So how can we measure the return on investments? So, like for instance, you share a product that currently on sale right now. How many people actually view this information and going to buy these products? Right, so that's actually pretty difficult, and also to find out it's very difficult by the marketer to measure the return on investment. So we are still trying to figure out a strategy how we can use to measure the return on investment. The second thing is how you are able to control this information. Because now everyone's on social media, right? A lot of information can be shared on social media. Some of them maybe are very confidential to the organization that you don't want to share with the general public on social media platform before it has been finalized. Right? For instance, maybe you're very interested in one of the coaches. You're very close to reach out the deal with these coaches. Right. So before the deal has been finalized, if this information has been disclosed on social media by one of your employees, that could be an issue, could be a problem. Right? You might not be able to, sign a contract or reach agreement with these coaches. Right. So you have to figure out when you develop a social media policy how you be able to control these informations. And the third thing, you have to think about how you be able to handle this improper usage, particularly the negative impact the organization image in the social media platform. Maybe some people just like some athletes, they receive a lot of like negative comment from their fans because the sports industry is like there are a lot of fans when they're using social media. So when they're not happy with their team's performance or athletes' performance, they will go and attack them, right? They'll write very strong languages on the social media platforms. Now, players, human beings, when they read this kind of information, they feel upset and they would like to go attack when they decide to attack that particular moment, so their image is actually in dangerous, right? So how you be able to teach people how they could use social media properly. So that's also something we have to go and consider about it. Here's the link. So some people might have watched very funny something called mean tweets that has been available on YouTube. You go and search mean tweet, you can see the celebrities been receiving those mean tweet on a daily basis, and they feel very upset about it. and frustrated about this, right? So look at all the professional sports organizations. They try to introduce a lot of different social media policies to address this issue and teach their players, coaches use social media properly and use social media in a good way to promote their organization in a positive matters, right? So all the professional sports league are using having a social media policies, right? English Premier League, where they say comments deemed improper can result in fire. NBA, they say use the cell phone is prohibited during the games, right? 45 minutes before tip-off until the media obligation has been complete. MFL said player, coaches, operation staff cannot use social media less than 90 minutes before the kickoff. NHL said players cannot use social media 2 hours before the FaceTime until media interviews are complete. MLB says cell phone use in the clubhouse is prohibited 30 minutes before the game time. Look at all these social media policy. What are the problems? They only just prevent people from using social media during the game time, but they actually didn't really teach players or coaches how you are able to use social media properly and try to take advantage of the new digital platforms and maximize the value. Right. So for you in the future, if you're going to write a social media policy, you have to think about those. You have in the policies indicate not just when you can use, you have to teach them what message do you encourage them to post on social media platform, what information you prevent them from posting in the social media platform, and what punishment may be associated with any improper usage for the social media if they violate the rules and if their behaviors is damaging the organization image. Right, so this is how you should write a better social media policies. Then this policies has been introduced by this professional sports league. So we talk about social media issues, have a very quick review for the first two part of today's class. So couple review question when you think about what the differences between professional sports league and other business. We talk about the lead thing, right? The 2P message, we talk about it. Right, what the differences between the four major professional sports league and other professional league like the MLS in terms of business models. We will talk about MLS is using single entity structures, right? Other professional sports league are using individual ownership models, right? And what strategy for the professional leagues to use for enhancing the competitive balance. Right, we talk about 5 different strategies, right? Help you have a quick review. Here we talk player draft, salary cap, luxury tax, and we talk about revenue sharing. We talk about territory race, and also we talk about the block rules, right? Okay, so that's about the second part of today's lectures, and the third part of today's lectures we will talk about how professional sports league has been operated in Europe. So we'll talk to you later.